Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Coffee Cast. Very exciting to be back for episode 2. Sooner than maybe people expected, but we're happy to make it happen. But yeah, it's good to be back, boys. How are y'all doing?
Very well. Excited.
Yes, this should be a good
Good.
episode. We have all made 3x3s for today, which will be really fun to talk about some favorite games. Gives listeners a chance to know us a little better as they kind of tune in for episodes. But before that goes, how was you guys' week? What have you been playing? What have you been up to? Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, definitely. Good time to shout out Outer Wilds. Mark had coached me through the Outer Wilds and completed it yesterday. And wow, that game pulls all the stops, is a beautiful exploration game. Really rivals Subnautica in the vast exploration capabilities that games like that have.
That's high
I'm sure
praise.
Mark knows a lot more about it than me at this point, but yeah.
Well, it was funny because you dropped it initially, like some
Mhm.
of our other friends did, and that wasn't really like an uncommon thing. I was like looking into it, and it was pretty common for people to drop it, and then it's like, oh, okay. I mean, and I just like looked for a video, and I'm like, oh, maybe you might resonate with this video, not expecting you to go back into it, more like, oh yeah, that's like how I felt, and then you watch
Exactly.
that video, and you're like, wait a minute, I get it now. It's like. And you immediately went back into it and finished it just like a couple days later. So yeah, definitely. It's hard to talk a lot about it, but definitely a game you should have on your list as well, Willis, to play. I think
Yeah.
you will definitely enjoy it.
I need to get into it at some point. I know literally nothing. I've actually heard you guys talk about it. I said I would do this. I forgot everything that you guys said already. So that's
That's the best
perfect.
way to get into it.
Yeah.
Knowing nothing, and yeah.
But maybe we'll have to do a spoiler cast at some point. That could be really fun.
Hmm.
So I'll have to
Yeah.
look that up.
A small plug, just so we can give credit where credit is due, but the video in question is from a gentleman named Daryl Talks Games with
Yes.
the video title of Watch This If You Didn't Get Outer Wilds. It's a very beautiful video. Gotta plug that because I think it was so helpful in getting like me in the right headspace to play that game and understanding what you have to do as a gamer to really appreciate that game. And so that was the video in question that Mark was referring to. Just want to give a shout out there.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'll make sure to link that actually in the description if people want to check it out. Put it at the little top of the box so that people can check that out. I'll give a brief non-gaming shout out really fast to the movie Obsession, which I know Glenn has also seen and I saw. Very good. Highly recommend. Also something you can't talk a lot about, ironically, because it's a very spoiler-heavy film. But yeah, I'll just say be careful what you wish for, and if you're looking for a horror movie, it's pretty peak. It's pretty great.
I think it's very interesting the dialogue that is going on with that movie. Just some people walking away completely wrong about which character is in the right.
Yes, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny.
But that is indeed a conversation to
Yes.
have.
But I'll leave it at that. I'll also leave that. Mark, that's your reading list now.
I
Mark,
don't know about
known
it
fan of
based on.
horror.
I don't know, but yeah, maybe we'll have to watch it.
Yeah. But anyway than that, today our main theme is we're going to talk about our 3x3s, some of our favorite games, give everybody a chance to talk about, what their favorite topics are for genres, what games influence them and their tastes, so that as we go forward, it kind of gives a baseline for maybe what we'll end up thinking about certain stuff. I will happily go last since I'm also operating everything. So if one of you wants to volunteer to go first, I'll pull your 3x3 up and you can introduce everything. I don't know if you have the stream up on the other screen, but I can do that really quickly. So who wants to go first? Class moment.
I can go. You can go. I don't mind either way, Glenn.
I think you should go, Mark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Willis, the logic with this 3x3, is it meant to be like sort of our top 9? I
Yeah,
guess,
essentially.
games? Okay.
I figured we could do more, but I thought making the 3x3 would be good, kind of just like, hey, here's a top 9. It's easy to see it on screen, and it's also kind of just like you could group it in threes if you wanted, or just be like, hey, here's roughly what I like.
Right, because like originally this list, which I've seen posted in a couple of other Discords when people talk about their games, it's like a 5 by 5, and I think I sent you guys. We actually filled it out, but I
Mhm.
couldn't even get all 25 in.
Oh yeah, it's a
And
lot.
then and then I was thinking about how to narrow it down to even 9. Um, but then I set a good rule for myself. It's like, okay, how about games that I've actually finished?
Hmm.
Some it doesn't apply to some of them, but then that really narrowed down the list I had originally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, actually, I'm not gonna start with like the top 3. I'm gonna start with Skyrim, which
Okay.
I would put at number 6. And a lot of this, it's very subjective. It's I just sort of vibed it.
Hmm.
Um, but I think Skyrim was really the first game for me that I had like a wow moment in gaming. Because prior to that, video games I typically played, as a kid was like Pokemon, which is great, and like maybe some of the earlier Civilization games I just had on my computer for some reason, or random RTS games I had. There's this one Lord of the Ring RTS game I played a lot. I didn't understand anything about it, but I liked playing it. But it wasn't until when Skyrim came out in November of 2011, I think, and I started playing it. I actually got like a new computer so it could run. It's actually
Ooh,
it might still be the same computer. I don't know if the 1080 was out by then, but it might still be that same computer Mina is
nice.
using. But
I
that
love
was like
that.
the first, yeah, that was like the first game when, I got in, you made your character, and it's just like the cinematic of it and everything, and you're progressing through the tutorial. I was just wowed by it. And then I remember in particular, which this wasn't new for Bethesda games or games in general. It's like I remember I walked into like the general store in the first
Hmm.
town.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like you can pick up stuff, and like move it around and throw it. And I just remembered, wow, this is so cool.
Oh
And
yeah,
I,
definitely.
I played a lot of Skyrim and I actually did beat it. But I think even to this day, there's probably like so much of that game I haven't even found out yet. Aside from like main story stuff, I did like a lot of like the main stories and side quests, but I didn't really finish everything.
Yeah.
But I would say that one was like a big one for me gaming wise and sort of into that RPG genre. And then, shortly after that, that's when I think a couple years later, I also started playing World of Warcraft.
Nice.
I just kept making free accounts and just like running around in the cities, because back then it was like a 15-day or 20-day free trial.
Yeah.
And I kept doing that because you had to pay for it, right? And I couldn't get my parents to pay for a sub yet, so I either played like a bunch of other free MMOs that I could find, or I just played like the WoW free trial, which was time limited. And eventually I think I did convince my dad or something to get me a sub to WoW, and that got me completely engrossed in it. I think I started when it was like Wrath of the Lich King
Nice.
around that time, but I never made it to the Wrath endgame there, so it wasn't until Cataclysm, the next expansion, when I reached max level. And I've pretty much had an almost active sub since throughout the
Ooh,
highs and lows of WoW.
nice.
There were definitely a lot of lows, but
It, it
certainly
happens.
some highs as well. But yeah, definitely it's a top MMO for a reason. And then, around the same time, I also started playing, well, a couple years later, started playing Final Fantasy as well. And now that's my main MMO, but those two combined probably dwarf in game time any other game, and it's like not even close. So, I had to put those two at the top for that reason.
Oh yeah.
I don't, yeah.
They're
And then,
classics.
yeah, a couple other on the list. Elden Ring was just a classic. That was actually the first from soft game I played, and I think it was definitely a learning curve with that one. But I played a lot of it, but I actually did not beat it until I came back to the game like a year later, and then I was like, let me finally finish this game, beat it. I was almost at the end too, but it was just like the last few bosses. I never beat it. I have this habit of
It's
not
tough.
beating games. It was the
Mark does
same
have that
actually.
habit.
Actually, that's also the same for Baldur's Gate. I didn't. I was completely engrossed in it when it came out, and then I didn't beat it. And it wasn't until I did that co-op with, our friend Lauren and Mina, that I actually finished that campaign. But that was also. I mean, on this list, it's like a bunch of Game of the Years. Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate,
Yeah.
Expedition 33. I don't think I need to really go into too much why those earn spots on there
Oh
as
yeah.
well. But
Expedition
then
is so good,
it,
and I
it
see
is.
people
Yeah.
complain about recency bias for that game sometimes, and I think that's nonsense. Like it's just so phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. And I don't remember if Glenn, if it was on your list or Willis, but I think it was on your list, right, Glenn?
Expedition 33.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you could talk more about it when it comes up for you, but games like that, and it's like a turn, on this list, it's like a lot of RPGs, but that's the only turn-based one. And I feel like when games are a masterpiece or a near masterpiece, they should transcend the genre that people who would normally play that game. And I think that would apply to Glenn, who has not played like a turn-based in
Mhm.
general.
Yeah.
And you probably wouldn't have until Will said, or someone said, like, you can parry in it. And you're like, oh, okay, hold on. I got you.
I did do that.
He
Glenn,
did
local
It's like,
say
parry
that.
enjoyer. I did in fact get him into the game because I was like, "Hey, you can parry in it. It's pretty great."
He did indeed say that.
yeah. But no, it truly, truly a special game. It was also great to stream it on the server, having people watch with me and react to it. And the last thing I'll end on that note as well was why I rated Dark Souls, the original, well remastered, but Dark Souls 1 on there. I think that game, I think it would have been one thing to play it on my own, and I would have still probably it would have probably still ended up on this list, but uh there's something, you hear about a lot of these older games and they're classics, but you haven't like got into them yet, right? Like Outer Wilds would be one, but Dark Souls is, right up there, just very venerated for its status and really setting the stage for a whole genre of games, which is the Souls-like games.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think and you look at it and you're like, well, this game looks old, or I hear it's hard, and it's like I don't
Mm.
want to play something that's hard, or it looks clunky, and it is all those things. It is old, it's hard, it's clunky, but there's like a magic to that game that I can't describe. Not just like the feeling of playing it, but also like the world design of it, even though it's very limited. And I think it did what, in a sense, like I liked Elden Ring a lot, but I liked Dark Souls 1 more for the world and the
Yeah.
feeling it gave you. Sort of like the oppressiveness of it, but it's also very melancholic.
Mm-hmm.
And you could, the moment, like when you get to the Firelink Shrine, you could tell you're about to play like a classic game,
Oh
and you're
yeah.
about to it's about to be a tough journey. Now, I will say it wasn't as hard as I think people made it out to be. Maybe it's because I played Elden Ring first, and Dark Souls 1 is not like the hardest Souls game, or at least I would say it's hard in different ways. Like Dark Souls 3, which I haven't beaten, definitely has much harder boss fights. But, I think Dark Souls 1 captures hardness not just in its boss fights, which I don't think are the hardest part. I don't think it's that hard, although some of them are very hard. Ornstein and Smo.
Oh yeah.
That I think
Oh,
I
that
think
fight
that
is
that's
tough.
almost universal. You know, but it's just like traversing the world, so brutal. But then that allows for moments when you're like so tired, you're on the edge of your life, and then you see like like a shrine or the bonfire, and that feeling of like safety overwhelms you, and it's so hard for that feeling to be captured in other games.
You.
Likewise,
Oh yeah.
you know, and this is more common for FromSoft games. So when you finally beat a boss and you didn't cheese it, because I cheesed a lot in Elden Ring, so it was never. I think that's the problem with me and Elden Ring. They made it was very accessible, but that meant I cheesed the hell out of it my first playthrough. I used the mimics. I used every advantage I had
I
when
did
I
the same
got
thing.
that I forgot the name of the blade, but it's the one from it's the like fuck the serpent guy,
Yeah, the
his
Oh
blade,
blasphemous
yeah.
blade.
blasphemous blade, yeah.
Yeah.
Once I got that, it was over. Like Melania, not a problem with my Mimic Tier and Blasphemous Blade. But then I think I robbed myself of like a satisfaction of defeating a really hard boss, which then I was able to get again in Dark Souls 1 because it was like easier, but it was still challenging enough where a lot of the boss you have to like learn the patterns and you have to like persevere through it. and then you beat the boss, like Ornstein and Smo and some of the other bosses. It felt really good to beat
Mhm.
them. Other bosses were like gimmick fights, whatever, but there were certainly a lot of bosses in that game that felt good to beat. And then the last note I remember, it was really funny with Dark Souls 1, part of, streaming it. I think, Glenn, you were watching me about to beat the game,
Hmm.
and we were up against the king, the unnamed. What was his name again?
Gwyn, I
Gwyn.
believe.
Oh, he was named.
Dark
Okay.
Souls 1, you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, sorry, I'm thinking of three. But Gwyn, you're fighting Gwyn, and he's not meant to be a hard boss. It's meant to be like you're not hard. It's like this is a guy that's dying and you're putting him out
Yeah,
of his misery. That wasn't the
exactly.
case for me because I had like a very defensive build, utilizing the shield a lot. And apparently that guy, you really needed to learn your parries. So Glenn was just watching me like ruin the climax of this game, really struggle with this boss as I'm learning to parry for the first time in the final act of the game.
Yeah.
That's so
But yeah,
funny. I remember I wasn't there for that stream, but I do remember hearing all about that. And I just thought it was so funny. Like I can totally visualize it now. Mark being like, "What's the timing on this?" And Glenn's like, "A little late, little late."
Yeah,
yeah,
no, definitely being there live was interesting because it's like parrying in Dark Souls 1 for a lot of it is an afterthought. Like you don't need to parry the hollows. Silver Knights are easier to beat if you know how to parry them, but it's like not
yeah,
necessary. But yeah, Gwyn's fight really does rely on the parry in a sense that like you described, Mark, is like this is a worn out king.
Hmm.
Like a boss has never been parryable before until now. And now you start to see him for what he was, a mad king going hollow.
Hmm.
And so you treated him like a nothing hollow. Um, but yeah, no, I think it was very interesting to see you learn the parry on the final boss fight. But I think it gives you uh, a unique story to tell about such a game that others
right.
definitely just did on their first try.
Yeah, I mean it definitely does. I think, just my journey throughout it all was so memorable, and I think that's why I rated it high. And Willis, do you know about the Marcos? I don't know if I should say this on stream, but do you know about the Marcos story when I was trying to beat the fire demon?
No, I'm curious
And
about
what
this though.
should I
I
should
can.
I
Okay, I'll cut this from the VOD if it's really bad.
No, I mean it's not bad, but I just wanted to be sure. So
Okay.
Glenn knows this story because he was watching, and
Yeah.
I forgot. I think it was in Lost Islet, and you fight the fire demon, which is just a reskin of the asylum demon, basically. So
Hmm.
so not a hard fight. But then Marco was on the Discord call, and he started screen sharing like furry hentai on the side,
Yes.
and like obviously I'm looking at that. Like I'm like checking it out. So I'm not looking at my screen, and Glenn is crashing out, watching me get flattened by this fire demon jumping up and down, and me just completely getting crushed by it. He's like,
Yeah.
Mark, lock in, and I'm like, Glenn, I am not looking at the screen right now. I am focused on something else. So that fight was really difficult, but
It's so funny.
not because the fight was difficult.
That was indeed a story. Yeah. He
We
spent
will.
longer on the fire stage demon than the centipede, the flaming
Oh yeah, I don't
centipede
even
that
remember that one.
Wow, really? I didn't know that. That's funny.
yeah, he
But
got
that
the centipede demon so fast, and the asylum demon reskin that he's seen for the third time took him so long.
And I don't think I even beat him properly. Like I got like I was like behind him and he got stuck in a loop, and that's the only way I was able to beat him because I was
Yeah,
able to he got stuck in like a loop of just jumping up and down, and I'm like, okay, I can do this now.
yeah,
That's really funny.
but that was indeed.
We'll have to make Marco come on the podcast maybe next week and defend himself for
I don't think there's anything to defend. It
he's,
is
I
he's
don't
what
gonna be
it
think
like,
is.
he'll even
what?
try to defend it. I think he'll be like, I was just helping Mark.
Yeah, I'm just
Like
giving
the
him some
PlayStation.
motivation. That's so fun. That's such a unique Dark Souls 1 experience. I just love that.
Right.
It
No.
really
Definitely had a unique experience with that game. Yeah.
We love to see it. That's so funny.
Yeah. Before we move on, Willis, do you have any anecdotes about some of the 9 that Mark has?
I
Like,
can list a couple. I'll also give a.
yeah.
Let me see here. One sec. I'll give a quick shout out to a follow from Skullwind on Twitch. Thank you. Um, but I think okay, I have an interesting one, which is I'll give a fun story about how I met Mark when I first met Mark. Um, when I first got introduced to you guys' group, little lore for how this went. I'm a late season character actually in the friend group of ours, and I didn't really know anybody. I got brought in to carry on Marvel Rivals, which was pretty much how I was pitched was, oh, he'll carry on Rivals. And so I was trying to get to know everybody better. And out of the blue, Mark had messaged me, hey, do you like Final Fantasy? Which when my list comes up, you'll see there's a couple Final Fantasy titles or Final Fantasy adjacent series on my list. I quite like it. And I was like, wow, how did he know? Do I just give off the vibes? I did not realize you could like check other people's servers on Discord. So you had seen I was in like every FF14 server for like the area and like hunting and everything. And so we kind of became fast friends because of that. And so Final Fantasy 14, I've been playing a lot of it again more recently. I gotta say that game's pretty amazing. That the end game is really fun. Having caught up and been able to interact with it more and everything, it's been really awesome. And I also I will hold my tongue on Elden Ring because perhaps maybe
Mhm.
that's on my list later as well. I can talk more about that then. But I will also give commentary on Expedition because spoilers that is not on my 9x9 or my 3x3. But I played Expedition on a whim because a friend recommended it. Shout out to my friend Salim. He was like, "Dude, you got to play this. It's so good." Blah blah blah. And I was like, "Okay, I'll check it out." Um, and then I became that guy for like everybody else, where I was just like yelling from the rooftops. I was like, "It's peak! It's peak! Please, everybody play it," because it came out the same weekend
Oh, yeah.
as Oblivion Remastered, and so I was like,
Oh, right.
what am I gonna play? This random game made by some people from France. I mean, it looks cool. I remember I thought it was, and I feel so embarrassed to say this because it's a personal favorite, even though it's not on my list. It's a personal favorite. I do love that game. I remember my first reaction to it was they really made Persona, but took the anime out of it. Like that was my first reaction when I saw the game because it had the like 3-person low camera angle stance that you get in the modern Persona titles. And so I was like, oh, is this just trying to like be Persona or whatever? And I completely ignored it. And I was like hardcore into Oblivion for like hours on end. And then after hearing so much hype about it online, genuinely just such good word of mouth for the game, when I checked it out, I was mind blown. And I did my best to get everybody else in our friend group to play it because I was just like, holy shit, this game's amazing. And so much about the characters, the world, the music. It really feels like a modern JRPG, like taking like everything that something like Persona, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, all those games took and giving it to a modern audience who has, become more commonly accepting of Souls-like games, of certain styles of RPG, and just taking elements of that and being like, well, how can I modernize what one of those games would be? And I mean, it's a masterpiece. It's so good. Shout out
Mhm.
Ben Starr as
Right.
Verso. So good.
Stunning.
I remember when Oblivion Shadow dropped and people were like, "Oh man, this new and upcoming game Expedition 33 is too bad, they really got the wind taken out of them." And little did we know, as much as I liked Oblivion, like I thought it was a great remastered, but we
Same.
had no idea. We really thought it's like, "Oh man, this studio, poor
Yeah.
studio." But it really was a game that I think, yeah, because of a bit of that unfortunate life when it came out, it didn't get a lot of attention initially. It really blew up over the course of the next couple weeks and months as people played it. And then they were like, "Oh my God, wait a minute. This game was amazing." Because I think it was sort of on people's broad radar. It's like you
Yeah.
saw clips of it and it's like, okay, it looks cool. It's like a JRPG, maybe worth checking it out. And then, I think like not only was the gameplay super polished and fun, but it had like this just amazing story alongside with it, and soundtrack and voice acting. It was just, nailed every aspect in that regard. And but people didn't know until some people played it and then they shouted it from the rooftops to play as you did and
Mm.
many other people and streamers did. And I think throughout that year then it just completely dominated the conversation and well deserves Game of the Year title for that year.
Oh
I
yeah,
agree. Yeah.
strong agree from me. If there's anything else you want to say, Mark, that was my comments at least on your list. Some things I would want to add, but Glenn, obviously, if you want to hop in and say anything too.
Right.
The biggest thing I wanted to share, just because it's not on my list, gotta boost up Skyrim. Skyrim, I think in like modern gamers right now,
Mm-hmm.
they definitely have Skyrim anecdotes to share. I just feel like everybody has either glanced at that game or has played it front to back multiple times. Skyrim for me was very fun because I'd gotten it on the Xbox 360 and then dropped it just because I was much younger and that game was too big for my britches at the time,
I was the
which I
same
was
way.
comfortable in saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I got a gaming PC shortly in middle school, and I just flooded that game with mods. And that was like definitely my modding like awakening. Is like,
Yeah.
wow, you really can just do whatever you want. Like, and S- Skyrim mods are like sky's the limit with that.
Yes, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Everything under the sun, and it was pretty mind-boggling going from the very vanilla Xbox 360 version to the PC version filled with mods. I was just
Oh
bringing
yeah.
guns into the Skyrim world just for no reason. And it created a sense of a sandbox that felt like so fun and so cool. And I don't have any games on my 3x3 to really acknowledge the modding community that really builds these games a legacy.
hmm
I think Skyrim is so influential and going to go down in history, not because of not only because of how big that was in like open world exploration and the vastness of that, but like having such code available to create mods like the ones that they have on
Yeah.
Skyrim. So big ups to the Skyrim and modding communities because that that is that's some good work that they're
Oh
doing
yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah, no, Skyrim definitely, I think, and when I put it on my list, it didn't even touch upon all that. Like,
Mhm.
its biggest impact was like that vanilla playthrough when I played it in
hmm
2011. And of course, as mods came out, I tried out a few, but I haven't even like touched the depths of how much you can mod that game,
Oh
much
yeah.
less, how much I even played in the original vanilla. But definitely like, I think that game probably more so than Dark Souls 1, but that's also like those two, really were so influential to like so many other games that came after them from,
hmm
I mean, Dark Souls started a whole genre of the Soulsborne, and Skyrim basically, it wasn't like the first, it wasn't like the Bethesda's, Bethesda had Morrowind and Oblivion, but Skyrim
Mhm.
was like the first one that sort of broke way more into the mainstream where
hmm
again, like
Oh
I
yeah.
mentioned with Expedition 33, it transcended the genre. Whereas, like, if you're an RPG fan back in the day, you probably played Oblivion and Morrowind, but Skyrim, you had people, these are people who normally would have played, just like FIFA or,
Oh
like
yeah.
Call of Duty, and even people who don't play games normally, I know at work, I interacted with this a colleague of my boss's, and she's like in her 40s and 50s, and we were having like a dinner after work one day, and I think it was known that I like to play video games, and she mentioned to me to like another partner that's like, oh, he likes video games too, and I'm like, but then so we chatted a bit about that, but then the topic of Skyrim came up, and that same lady who you wouldn't expect to play a video game, she's like, "Oh yeah, Skyrim, I played it. Everyone has played Skyrim." And it's just like the last person I would expect to have played
Mhm.
Skyrim, and it's just, I think, yeah, just the amount of people, games that transcend the genre that people who would normally play it. That's, I think and I would argue like Elden Ring in a sense
Oh yeah.
did a bit of that as well. Um, but then, you can even trace back to Elden Ring, an open world Soulsborne. It's like you kind of took Dark
Yeah.
Souls 1 and Skyrim, smashed them together, let it cook for a couple of years, and then you got Elden Ring, So
Yeah.
it's like
Exactly.
how these games influence each other. And now games that are now being influenced by Elden Ring and so forth and so on. So definitely. And who knows in the future with Baldur's Gate and Expedition 33, they are more recent, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see more games that are inspired by those two as well. So definitely, and I almost forgot World of Warcraft, of course, for revolutionizing the MMO genre.
Yeah.
With which without World of Warcraft, you would have no Final Fantasy or probably 20 other MMOs that tried to usurp the throne and never did. I mean, I think still to this day, World of Warcraft still remains the most played MMO, which is crazy for a game that's, I don't know how old it is now, but over 20
Yeah.
years old.
Mhm.
Shout out to also speaking of WoW clones, Star Wars: The Old Republic. I used to play that a
Right.
lot.
That is a classic.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mark, for sharing that 3x3.
Yeah.
Really solid. Great choices. We love to see it.
Outstanding 3x3.
W's in the chat for Mark.
Thank you.
Here, one moment. I will switch us back to chatting here real quick while I bring up Glenn's. Glenn, anything you want to preface before I bring this up?
I don't think so. I think just a follow-up question that I kind of am prodding at around other gaming circles is, without D&D knowledge, how engaging is Baldur's Gate 3? I've never
Ooh,
played
that's a
it.
good question.
I really want to get into it, and I know my brother mentioned that it doesn't seem like the game for me.
Mm-hmm.
He has been wrong about such things before, so I would love to hear how you guys would preface that argument.
I mean, I can speak to this as I don't have D&D background. I know, Willis, you do. I mean, I might
Yeah.
have my D&D background. I don't. It might have been like a one shot I did with a couple of friends years ago. So I really
Mhm.
know, aside from like the tropes around it or stuff you would like, you would know, like there's dice rolls, there's turns, and all
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know anything about it, and I think I wouldn't say you. I mean, you kind of do learn a lot about D&D in a sense, right? Because it's based off. I mean, I know all the D&D stuff gets really deep because then there's like Pathfinder and all that, and
Yeah.
all these like different types. But at its core, I don't think it didn't really. I mean, there's a bit of a learning curve, but I feel like the game does a pretty good job of easing you in. I
Yeah.
mean, like, Mina, for instance, who hasn't played a lot of video games before, she played a bit of Helldivers 2, which is completely different. And then
Yeah.
basically her second big game was Baldur's Gate 3, and it took a bit, but I would say I don't think it really, not having that experience didn't really add or subtract to it. If anything, I think it was interesting to learn
Mm.
about that,
Oh, I was gonna say she
There
would
you
like
go.
to. She would like to make a comment. She is more than welcome to. If she would like to give a quick shout out on stream and talk about BG3.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was just saying like how BG3 actually wants her, made her want to get a bit into D&D as well.
Yeah.
So if
Mm.
anything, maybe. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I actually had no D&D experience when I first played Baldur's Gate 3, but I have a
Oh.
weird experience with that game where I played it when it was in early access and it only had like a fraction of Act 1. It was pretty rough at the time, but I thought it was cool.
Mhm.
And then I remember I kind of forgot that I bought the early access. I made like 3 characters, played through it, liked it. And then like a few years later, my friend Tay, shout out to Tay, she was like, "Yo, I saw you play Baldur's Gate 3. I have like 300 hours in it now. We should play." And I was like, "What, that random game I played?" And then that was the year it got nominated for Game of the Year and won and everything. And I like jumped back into it and I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing." But I had no D&D experience at the time. I'm very similar
Okay.
to
Yeah.
Mina, where I played BG3 and then wanted to get more into D&D and really like I was that same pipeline, which I think it seems like a lot of people have now gone down, where it was like, I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. You play BG3, which is kind of essentially a D&D campaign, but instead of having it with other people, they've crafted it around you to allow you to interact with this story they made. And you still have a large bit of freedom that I don't think any other game, even to this day, really gives you, that you can do in BG3 that makes it feel like you're really interacting with a D&D campaign. There's so many moments in BG3 where you go like, I can't believe they thought about that. I can't believe you coded that into the game to allow it to happen. So I definitely don't think you need any experience. Yeah.
That reminded me. You'll find this funny, Glenn. Because Willis, I also played it. I remember because it was out in that early access for years. I remember I
Years,
got it,
yeah.
played it, played it for a couple hours. I was like, I don't really get this. This is boring. Forgot about it. Then, you know, I think it came out, and I completely forgot it had the early access, right? So I'm like, okay, this game looks cool. And then I went to the Steam store page ready to buy it. I'm like, in my library? Like, what do you mean it's already in my library? So
Yeah.
I did. I mean, so it's like I already had the game, and then when it came out, I just played it.
That's so funny.
Right.
That's the way to do it, man.
Right.
Peak
It's for
cinema.
those times where it's on sale and it's like I'll play this at some point type of vibe.
Right.
Exactly.
That time is now.
Oh, that's so funny. Alrighty, Glenn, I will switch us back over to the screen share,
Yeah.
and you can take us through your 3x3. Which, if
My-
to the people who know Glenn, this is a very Glenn 3x3, which I love.
This will be the most expected 3x3 ever. And I have to start with Sekiro.
Okay, go
This,
off.
the smile Sekiro brings to my face
I can see it right
is
now.
unending. So those of you that have seen my little HL_ team off gamer tag, HL stands for Hardlock, and those are my bestest friends in the world. Benny and Elliot, Ethan, they are the greatest, and we had just beat every single From Software game from 1 all the way to like Bloodborne. And the only one left, Elden Ring wasn't out at the time, but the only one
Yeah.
left was Sekiro. And after playing through all of them at the same time, we decided to make Sekiro a final race.
Ooh.
I had won that race. And the journey of racing against friends on a game that we've all been playing for the first time was so fun because it got to the point where it wasn't even like kicking dirt in each other's eye. It was like, yo, I just found this like headless thing at the bottom of the lake.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then everybody would go run to see what you get for beating that. And so it was amazing just seeing like one person in the race end up getting the sure ending, ending the game in like like so much earlier than you're ever supposed to,
Yeah.
and everybody freaking out. And it
Oh.
was so good that it just did I cut out? I probably did.
You did for like half a second, but you're good. You can keep going.
It
By the
is
time
so
I said that,
good
you were
to watch people experience that game for the first time. Other shout outs is Mark, who we started our Discord community because I wanted to see his first impressions of the game. And it is amazing how everybody goes through the same learning curves. Every single one, the same learning curves. And it brought me back to when I watched our other good friend Martha, who is one of the only people who actually visited my old place just because she heard that I had Sekiro and she wanted to try it. And so watching everybody go through that prologue before you lose your arm to Genichiro
good.
and everybody learning the same stops, the same thing, being like, okay, I don't get what I'm doing wrong. And then figuring out that it is a polished rhythm game. That everything is a rhythm game that goes so well. If you listen to the clinks and the clangs, you will understand that orange spark, that clang, is when it's your turn to just start doing damage.
Yeah.
And that dopamine of that orange clang and getting that whole combo, like clang, 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 parry, 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 it's no greater feeling in any other game that I've seen so far. And it is the best. And the only negative gripe I have about this game is to get the true ending, you do nothing but eavesdrop on your friends,
Yeah.
which is boring. I feel like they could have done a lot more cool things with that. But when I was 100%ing it and I wanted to get the final ending, when I saw, okay, you got to eavesdrop on Kuro here, then eavesdrop on Emma here, it was like, okay, disappointing. But the gameplay is amazing. Going to the new areas and every new area feeling new was amazing. Every new area has new enemies that you had to learn the timing to. And then you would come across stuff where mini bosses in the early game are now regular enemies that you just gotta fight.
Yeah.
It is no greater sense of growth I've ever felt in any game, and it is the best ever. Um,
Definitely in the
even
GOAT debate.
recently, one of my friends in the chat, Joel, shout out Joel, he
Shout out.
recently just beat the game. And it was amazing watching him going through those same stops, just in person, seeing how people react to the owl character. You know, like when you are forced with talking to the owl, what are you going to do? You know, because there is a right and wrong choice. And making that wrong choice can end the game. And so it is such a beautiful game. And I think every single game that has a parry now, I just think about that and think about how similar it is to that. So
Mhm.
that's my Sekiro glaze.
Completely valid.
First box of the whole 3x3. I'll go quicker for these other. Red Dead Redemption 2, I think, is the greatest narrative story ever told in
Mhm.
recent media. That is no better redemption arc in any story ever. I think Arthur Morgan is the best protagonist that has ever been redeemed in any media ever. He, Roger Clark played him so well. It is such a stunning game. Everything is just the right amount of realism for me. Getting animals, getting like every time you hop off your horse, you have to physically grab the arsenal you want
Yeah.
before you go on that mission. Just simple things like that. That's like, okay, I'm going into this area. I am making the decision to bring a double barrel shotgun.
Yeah.
That means you're looking to go into this fight causing a mess. You know,
Yeah.
you have to make that decision every single time. The putting on your bandana, decisions like that, like putting the bandana up, you know for a fact you're going to cause mayhem and you don't want your bounty to go up because of it.
Yeah.
I think it's the customization is perfect. You can create your own purebred American man straight out of the bayou, wherever they are. And you can have as big as a beard you want, as long as the hair you want. You can make him fat, you can make him skinny, and then you can put him in any clothes you want and just start scouring the Wild West.
Mhm.
And it gets even better in the epilogue where you have two maps. It takes the map from Red Dead 1 added to Red Dead 2.
Yeah. It's awesome.
That is amazing. It is the best. So I think Red Dead 2 is the best narrative story I've ever played, just in terms of growing as a human, confronting the inevitability of death. It hits all of it, every single one. Binding of Isaac Repentance. Oh my goodness. Binding of Isaac Repentance had such a big role in my development as a gamer. When I had first gotten my own room, because I had been sharing with my brother for as long as I can remember, I got my own room, and the first thing I did was change my computer that we shared at the time. I changed the background wallpaper to the Binding of Isaac. Some fan art I found in the Binding of Isaac. I made that my laptop wallpaper because I loved it. I think it is an amazing roguelike where no two runs have ever been the same, and you really learn everything you need to from playing that game. You know, dying 10 times will unlock the item, and dying with that item unlocks the lost. And now
Yeah.
you're like, oh my god, now I can beat everything as the lost. And it's just everything I needed in a roguelike. Fun items, fun synergies, and a commentary on the world around us. It's
Mhm.
got these amazing tales of this Christian, trying to be as nice as possible. This Christian hysteria. it's it's a it's an interesting tale about a crazy mother who thinks
Yes.
she
Yeah.
hears the voice of God, and the binding of Isaac is, referring to the story of Isaac,
Mhm.
who is said to be sacrificed by his father Abraham, and he runs away from his mother and ends up needing to defeat the mother
Yeah.
with what he's given. And I made my own theory at the time of playing this game where every representation you see the devil in the game,
Mhm.
that is actually God. Because in the
Mm.
way Isaac is brought up, there's no reason for him to not see God as an op.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so I don't know, I made my own theory about that when I was real young. And then as the game progressed from the Flash on Newgrounds to this standalone Binding of Isaac Rebirth title that
Yeah.
I credited the picture in my 3x3 to, it became its standalone game with its own backbone, its own coding and whatnot. And it made tons of fun. I modded that a lot as well, just to see how big it can go, and it can go pretty big. But that is definitely where my love of roguelikes come from. So it's very good. My next one, Batman Arkham Knight, is what I credit to my love for 100% in games.
Mm.
If anybody knows about the Batman Arkham series, those Riddler trophies
Yep.
are there for you to collect. Batman Arkham Knight has 235 Riddler trophies, and you have to get them all to defeat the Riddler. There is no better Batman villain I like kicking the shit out of than the Riddler. And so, in the previous ones, slight spoilers ahead. Previous ones, spoiler alert, Batman Arkham
Yeah.
series. You always collect the Riddler trophy, and then you call on your bat phone, hey, the Riddler's at this location. He gave it to me through his trophies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end. Batman Arkham Knight, you kick that little fucker's teeth in. And it is the most fun ever. It correlates with the Catwoman storyline, which in Batman Arkham City, Two-Face correlates with the Catwoman
Yes. Yeah.
storyline. So Batman Arkham Knight created the Catwoman Riddler connection, but just the amount to do in that game, and how whenever you're done with a big story beat, it's just Batman being like, okay, now I have a breather to work on other things. And there's tons of other things. There's Firefly side missions. There's still the Two-Face side missions, the Penguin side missions, Deathstroke side missions.
Yeah.
It is so good. And I 100%ed that game 5 times in the first 3 months it was out. And at the time, people were complaining about too much Batmobile. That Batmobile was the most fluid driving in any game I've ever seen. Light poles, entire structures, like monuments, crumble before your feet at every turn. It just feels like the powerful Batmobile that it always should have been. You are
Yeah.
flying in that thing always. And it is such the greatest power trip ever. And you get to be Batman. And it closed off the trilogy in such an amazing light. I haven't played the Suicide Squad, but that did something else. So I'm not going to count the ending of that. But
That's fair.
I think it ended the Arkham trilogy in the most brilliant way. Everybody had the case closed. The ending of the Joker is literally the best I've ever
Yeah, it's
seen,
really good.
and really ties together how there's this symbiotic relationship with the Joker and Batman, and they did amazing. Mark Hamill plays the best Joker, and it was so good. So, yeah, I 100% games now because of Batman Arkham Knight. So I had to put that high on the list.
Oh yeah.
Um, Next one is Assassin's Creed Unity. I just have to give an Assassin's Creed up here. Like Batman Arkham Knight, you can already tell the similarities in those. Big open world, massive power trip.
Mhm.
Somebody will attack you. You get to block it, take no damage, but do damage to them. But I was thinking about between Assassin's Creed 3 and Assassin's Creed Unity. Assassin's Creed 3 walked so that Unity could run. Assassin's
Mm.
Creed 3 added so much, but Unity perfected it all. Assassin's Creed 3 brought in guns, and now, with the addition of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Unity came out after that and really perfected the guns.
Mhm.
It made it so they were not scared to give assassins guns, because in Assassin's Creed 2, you had the hidden gun, but that was on a case by case basis. This one, you get to have your own gun, and they added um blunderbusses in the DLC for Unity. They were not scared to let you experiment with guns.
Yeah.
And it was stuff like that where the exploration in tied with guns and the counter was changed to a parry where it created this more difficult game that you didn't get to just parry insta kill. You really had to like parry and then deal the damage and whatnot. And I think that game rewarded you a lot for 100%ing it. If you 100% the game, you get this sword that lets you like blind
Oh,
enemies. And I think games like that, I love. Dang it! I cut out again. Probably
you did
the
for half a
bucket
second,
of
but it
my
was low
laptop
key.
is
It was low
crashing.
key perfect because it was right as you talked about blinding, and it like.
Okay, that's exactly what happens. Yeah, so you took the point of view of the enemy, but it just like it made you feel rewarded for collecting. Um, like when you collected a collectible, I think it was like the freedom ribbons. When you collected 100, you get to wear the black assassin robes. That was awesome. It's stuff like that, small stuff like that that makes collecting like rewarding. So yeah, I gotta give love to Assassin's Creed Unity. Fun parkour as well. Silk Song, I am the biggest Metroidvania fan now, all
Yeah.
because of Silk Song. It was so fun to go from not being able to beat Hollow Knight when that came out to no lifing Silk Song and completing it within like 2 days. It was so good. It told a story of motherhood, which I have no connection to, but I bet if I did, it would be so good.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. It was just an amazing story. The ending is so good
Oh yeah.
that I am not going to spoil just because everybody that played Hollow Knight needs to play Silk Song to see that. It was such an amazing reveal. It was the best Metroidvania I've played yet, where every single new ability you got felt earned and it made you feel more powerful. I
Yeah.
think the funniest story I have about this game is I had beaten it and was cleaning up my 100%, and I realized I never understood how to get through this mist area. I finally ended up getting through it, and the reward for getting through the mist is a parry button. I beat the whole game completely unaware that there was a parry hidden in the mist. And so when I found that on my second playthrough, speedrunning to the parry is the first thing I did. And if you know anything about the list so far,
Yeah.
I feel cool about having parries. I'll
Yeah.
take parries all day. And so it was such a good fight. It's such a good reveal in that mist. Every boss fight felt so rewarding and so fun, so unique. And so, yeah, Metroidvanias, I look for them everywhere now. Good friend of ours, um, Liz, had just recommended me a momentum-based movement Metroidvania
Ooh.
called like Iron Boulder or whatever.
Ooh
So I
yeah.
might have checked that out. Um, Up next, Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain.
Dude, yeah.
This is the first Metal Gear I've played. I watched my brother play Metal Gear Solid 4. Um, but this one was the one I got to really experience. I played it with my other Hardlock friend that I mentioned, Benny. He said, "Hey man, you really got to try this game. It's very narrative driven, open world. You're gonna love it, and just Metal Gear is a story that you want to have on your roster, at least in some form, because it's an amazing narrative to tell." And I played it, and I fell in love with it. It was just so perfectly crafted. I loved running after those S ranks, those Foxhound S ranks, doing everything stealthily, not killing anyone, not being alerted. My first playthrough, I remember telling Mark this, was a complete LMG run through. And I just dropped the game a little bit after that, but then went back into it and did how I think one should experience. Not always on a first playthrough, but like, hey, try and do the tactical espionage that the subtitle is going for.
Yeah.
Like, it's good, and you'll find it better. And I loved it. I 100%ed it, and just the ending reveal. If you've played every Metal Gear before that, the ending reveal will shake you to the core. And it when Metal Gear Delta was like on the rise, I knew I was gonna pick that up.
Yeah.
I knew right away I was gonna have to pick that up. And now with the Metal Gear Solid Masters Collection or whatever 2 coming out,
Yeah.
Peace Walker, I believe it's called, is
Yeah.
gonna be in it. And that used to be a PSP exclusive. Now it's not.
Yeah.
And so
That's
now you
huge.
can play the official prologue of Metal Gear Solid 5. See how they ended up in that situation. That's big. That's huge. I'm going to pick that up as well. I think everybody should understand the story that all the Metal Gears are trying to say, because every day we get closer and closer to Metal Gear Solid 2
We do.
not feeling like fiction. It's feeling more and more like real life.
Those tweets keep popping up of this happened in Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yes,
It keeps
exactly.
happening.
It happens so much, and everybody needs to be aware. Open your eyes. Resident Evil 8. Now this was scary to put on my 3x3s. Not that there's any gonna be any r/Resident Evil people in the chat yet, but when this VOD gets 1 million views, I'm gonna have to start changing my name. Resident Evil 8 puts the bow on the greatest Resident Evil character I have come to know. Ethan Winters is everything I look for in a horror game. I think that's what makes. I think people like him is what makes James Sunderland so good. People like Isaac Clarke so good. I think I fully believe in every man's life there will be a time where he's going to have to make the decision to put family over comfort. And there's no better man that did that than Ethan Winters.
The GOAT.
He risked life and limb to save his wife, and then did not hesitate a little to do it again for his daughter. That man stood on business, and it puts a character that does not even. It's just so good to have a character that puts people like that on to his pedestal and starts going in. It's like Isaac Clarke in Dead Space. He did it too. You know, he was there on a job, but at the end of the day, he was looking for his wife, as gone as she was. And Resident Evil 8, it took the situation of, oh, I'm a cop, I get to put an end to this big conspiracy. You know, I got to find out what Umbrella is doing, and turns it into, I'm going to save my wife and daughter. Let's get it. And that's what I wanted from Resident Evil. I think Resident Evil 8 is good because of the horror movie tropes that they also did in 7. I just liked it better in 8.
Yeah.
7, you have the father, the wife, and the son. Father's like the slasher film. The mother's like the bug horror. And then the son is like Saw. This one opens it up, puts Dracula, the fish monster, the body horror of like a machine man, and the like psychological possession horror of the I'm blanking on her name, but the doll lady.
The dolls, yeah.
The dolls. So that's why Resident Evil 8 is my favorite. Last but not least, Expedition 33. This one was recommended by these two right here, Willis and Mark, because I had never played a turn-based game ever. More slander that's gonna want me to change my address when this is a VOD that gets 1 million views. But I played Persona for an hour and hated it, so I dropped it. And that was the only prior experience I had. They sold me on the fact that Expedition 33 has a parry, And boy, did it have a parry. It had one of the best timed parry mechanics in any of these games I've talked
Mm-hmm.
before. It was so immediately known when I would make a mistake on a parry and be like, hey, that was my fault. I
Yeah.
timed that way too early or I timed that way too late. And I knew right away I would need to do better to do this. So it was so good that this was the introduction to turn-based games, and it only got better and better as the bosses got harder and harder. The sense of accomplishment in beating someone like Simon is amazing.
Yeah.
It was so good to drop my controller after trying that for like 2 days and being like, I hit every parry on the dot. And
Yep.
because of that, I won. And it it just like Sekiro's on the top left of this 3x3,
Yeah.
Expedition 33 is at the bottom right. They paralleled each other. Both gave me the same amount of satisfaction in beating it. I knew that I beat it because I learned what I needed to do with the timing and executed it flawlessly. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
My 3x3. Very
Beautiful, beautiful
passionate.
choices. Beautiful W's in the chat for Glenn. Yeah, I mean, I knew. I remember the moment I realized I really needed to recommend Expedition to you was I saw a post talking about the fact that the director Guillaume, I'm forgetting his last name right now. Someone found out after the game came out that he had a YouTube channel, and all it was Sekiro no hit speedruns. His
Oh, really?
entire YouTube channel is all Sekiro no hit speedruns. And so I was like, oh man, Glenn's gonna love this game. This was made by a Sekiro head just like him. And sure enough, yeah, you loved it, you know?
Yeah. It was so good. I just the characters and everything, like blowing past the parrying, like even the story
Yeah.
was just such something to
Mhm.
think about, and it was amazingly told.
That's
Beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah, I agree. I'll add one anecdote and then I'll let Mark comment on any of the games on here if he wants to say anything too. But I actually had a funny story. I've told Mark this before because I had a similar experience with FF14 with a certain class. But when I first played Sekiro, I really liked it initially. I picked it up. And I remember I dropped the game because shout out, I don't even know if he'll see this, but he's a real rage baiter. My friend Dan, Mr. Misinformation Spreader. I was playing Sekiro and he was also playing it. He was like, "Oh, do you like it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love Sekiro. It's really good." Because I had played Dark Souls 1 and 3. I hadn't played any other Souls games at the time, but I'd played the
Mm.
two of those, and I was into the vibe Sekiro was going for. And my buddy Dan goes, "Yeah, I hate that using the res mechanic blocks you out of the true ending." And I was like, "Oh, dude, that sucks." And then I dropped Sekiro because I was like, I hate that this game wants me to interact with a mechanic that will like ruin the story for me. So I was like, "Oh,
Oh
that
my
sucks. I hate that." And I dropped the game. And then years later, my friend Tay again, shout out to her because she also likes Souls games. I was telling her that, and she was like, "That is not true. That's a lie. Like, that's not what happened." And I was like, "What?" And then so before Elden Ring came out, I went back and beat Sekiro, and I was like, "That was
Mm.
amazing. I could have enjoyed that years ago." Like, I was so
Oh my
upset.
god.
I'm so glad I shared the story of how to get the true ending, and then you sharing that anecdote to know how like
It's
just thinking
wrong. It
about
is.
how crazy that would have been if that is how you got the true ending compared to like what you
Oh
actually have
no.
to do.
Yeah,
Oh my, I'd still be trying. I'd still be out
Yeah.
there trying. That's crazy.
yeah.
That is crazy.
But yeah,
Wow.
I'll open the floor for Mark real quick before I go over to mine. If there's anything he wants to say about Glenn's list.
Oh, I mean, yeah, on the same point with Sekiro, I started streaming it to Glenn, and that's why we had that other server going on. But I had to stop because I knew, and he's going to be mad about this, but I knew like this cannot be like my second from soft game, like because I feel like if I play this, I mean I wouldn't have known at the time, but it's like I feel like this will ruin the entire Dark Souls series for me because it won't be as good. So then my logic was like, okay, let me go in order. I'm going to do one, and then I'm going to do three. Then I'll play Sekiro, and then I'll top it off with two. the
Yeah.
best one for last. What I should have done, I still should. I think it was right for me not to play Sekiro yet. It's still on my list, and I'm really excited to play it. But what I should have done is I should have started with 3, because I did not expect to enjoy 1 the
Mm,
amount that I did. And 3, I mean, maybe it's a hot take, but three is a good game, but I think playing 1, then going to 3, and immediately learning that, okay, so now you teleport to the next location. That really deflated a
Yeah.
lot of it for me. And as good as the boss fights are obviously better and more polished, I would still say, and I haven't beaten 3 yet, but I'm right there at the end with
mm,
the Soul of Cinder, and I've got the other 2 big ones, Unnamed King and the Sister Freed.
Mhm.
Those are like basically what I'm missing. So I have nowhere to turn but just a bunch of relatively difficult
mm.
bosses. So still haven't beaten it, but I've played like almost all of it. Except I guess I didn't do the other DLC, but I have to beat the game first, I think. Or
Yeah.
No,
maybe
you
not.
don't.
Oh, do
Oh,
you
I
not?
don't? Okay, never
Yeah,
mind.
no.
Gosh, it's
You
been
Okay.
so
you
long
you
since I
c-
played that.
The Ring City.
yeah, because the best thing about 3 is like in Dark Souls 1, you have to
Mm,
beat the DLC before you beat the game
Mhm.
because
right.
beating the game will lock you into your ending.
Oh,
Uh,
that's right. Yeah, yeah,
Dark Souls
yeah.
3, you can beat the Soul Cinder, watch your cutscene, and then
Mm,
New Game Plus when you're ready. So, um, I would beat the Soul Cinder just to see that, and then go do all the DLCs that are,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
really
So that's where
ties a
I'm
bow
at.
on the whole franchise kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know it's not supposed to be the hardest fight, but I've been struggling with the Soul Cinder. Granted, I've only given it about maybe like 2 dozen tries,
Mhm.
so I probably could do it. But part of me just wants to already jump into Sekiro because I'm like,
Yeah.
I started that game. I beat the first main boss, and I haven't gotten much further than that. I remember when Glenn was watching me do the White Serpent sequence, he was losing it because I was like missing all the cues and stuff
Oh
and just
yeah,
running around.
I
But
remember.
I really do want to go back to that game. So I might even start it up again even before beating 3, because I don't
Wow.
know. For me, I know 3 is the top choice for a lot of people. It's just not grabbing me as much as Dark Souls 1 or even Elden Ring did. And
Mm,
I think I should have started with 3 probably and done that, then gone back to 1, because I didn't expect to
Mhm.
enjoy 1 as much as I did. I thought 1 was like the oldest and clunkiest, so I'm like, let me get this out of the way first, and then it's like my favorite from Soft.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a
I
classic.
I yeah. That is a good one. And your teleporting critique is not that out of left field. I've definitely heard that before.
Right. And I mean, it's a different game, which is fine, but a big draw for me was like the interconnectedness of the world. When you're playing 1 and you take
Mhm.
that like one of those elevator lifts and you're back at Firelink Shrine and you're like, how the hell does
Yeah,
that work? And you're like
yeah.
thinking about it, and I'm like, oh my God. And then it's like the game just has like several more of those.
They did
And
that so
I,
well.
obviously haven't played Bloodborne because I'm waiting for the PC release for that one, but I'm sure I've
Yeah.
heard that one is probably the
Next
closest,
month, Summer Games Fest,
right?
bro. It's gonna happen, man.
Bloodborne
Pure
is
cope.
I don't know. Bloodborne is like all teleporting.
It
Oh,
is.
never mind.
Um,
Okay.
No, it's not gonna
Never
fix that
mind.
it's
problem
like
for you.
uh,
Bloodborne.
you-
Bloodborne is a I always think of that meme where it's like silence data driven decision maker, a vibes guy is talking. Like that's low key how Bloodborne is. Like you could sit there and go
mm,
like, here's physical evidence of other games that are like why they're better in the Souls franchise, and people will look you dead in the eye and go, but the vibes though. And I'm kind of that guy. I,
mm,
I I like look at Bloodborne and I go, yeah, but the vibes of Bloodborne, like the
yeah,
aesthetic, it just rules.
Mhm.
because I know like I don't think I'm wrong about this, but one thing that you might find shocking, Mark, is there isn't a rest, you know? There's like the lanterns that you have to go back to
Yeah,
the Firelink Shrine and then go there. That's your rest,
yeah,
and then you go back out. Um,
Mm.
so I think it'll be pretty interesting for you to see like anytime you want to quote unquote rest, you have to go back to the Firelink Shrine area
Oh, well.
and then teleport right back to where you were. Um, But don't get me wrong, Bloodborne I think is definitely up there at the greats.
Oh
Like
yeah,
that deserves all the praise.
Mhm.
Pairing with a gun is cool as fuck.
100% agree. Alrighty, I guess it's my turn. I guess I have to do this now. Okay.
Yes, Willis, take us
All
home.
right, one sec. Let me pull up my 3x3. I am gonna do my list kind of differently. I'm gonna do mine in reverse. So I'm gonna go from
Ooh.
Half-Life 2 to Portal 2. Both Valve titles. If you're looking at the list right now, you're like, wow, this guy really likes Valve and he really likes Square Enix. And yes, RE4W. We love RE4. Peak, just so good. But yeah, I'll be going from Half-Life up to Portal 2, which is my favorite, like, explaining my opinions, etc. But yeah, I'll just jump right on into this. Half-Life 2. I'm a big Valve guy. Really like Valve games. I play a lot of Deadlock still now. It's like my main content thing. I'd have put that on here, but it's still in alpha, and I don't know. I don't want to include a game that's in alpha on my list because it could change a lot. But love Valve. I am late to the party, though, technically, on Half-Life 2. I played most of their other games first. I played Half-Life 2 when I was in high school after having played TF2, Left 4 Dead, Portal, and all of that when I was very young. So I had the inverse of how most people experienced Valve, where it was like they played Half-Life 2 and they were like, holy peak, and then like went and played everything else, and then like Gary's Mod broke off of that and everything. But with Half-Life 2, coming into it after having played all these games that were built around what that game did first, it gave me such a greater appreciation for it, I guess, you know? It would be like loving heist movies and then seeing like Heat for the first time from the 80s and being like, oh yeah, this makes so much sense now, right? Like all these movies took stuff from this. So sitting down and playing Half-Life 2 when I was a teenager was this really eye-opening moment for me, for even storytelling in general, of understanding, oh man, wow, this is so interesting how so many games took from this, and like the whole thing of like first person storytelling in a shooter, and like the way the game lets you interact with the environments, the physics, you know, being able to break stuff, doing this idea of making you balance between fighting and shooting at enemies with like puzzle solving and level design. And I really love, and especially in the modern day when you get like the yellow paint argument, I love so much that Half-Life 2 like does not hold your hand at all. It presents you this dystopian 1984 world where, you know, the government tells you how to live, how to eat, what to do, when to smile, all this stuff. And it kind of presents you that world, and it doesn't say like proceed to the next checkpoint and give you an arrow. It just, you get off that train and you're there, and you got to figure out where to go, what to do, how you're going to survive, and the story starts to progress. I mean, even to this day, it does it better than some games do. And it still has aged, you know, like such a fine wine. And it getting, as Glenn, you mentioned mods, getting mod support very recently from Valve, completely opening it up and letting people, you know, change everything about the game, has made it fun to go back to in the modern day and re-enjoy it. So I don't want to spoil anything about Half-Life 2 because I really think it's something everybody should play, especially considering it like is usually like $5 on Steam, like all the time. I highly recommend it. It's a real masterpiece, especially if you've ever liked dystopian science fiction kind of storytelling. Just fantastic game. In a similar vein, games inspired from first-person storytelling narrative stories. Halo Reach. Maybe a little controversial, but that is my favorite Halo game. I know a lot of people would maybe say 3 or 2. I love Halo Reach. Part of it is because I always struggle, and I say this ironically when I have like multiple other installments for franchises on this list, but I always sort of struggle recommending big franchises I like to people because I always say something like, oh, this game is like so good, I love this one game. But then like to get like a really good grasp of the whole story, you have to play a bunch of the other ones. I really feel strongly about that with Halo. I think Halo 3 is amazing, but I can't just recommend someone Halo 3. You have to play 1 and 2 first. But Reach is this perfect sort of, it essentially acts as a prequel to all of the other games. So you could technically play it first and then play the rest. But it's this really great contained story that, you know, tells this group of Spartans who are, you know, sent on a mission to the planet Reach to scout it and try and get information on the Covenant. And, you know, shit hits the fan and it goes crazy. And you have to survive with this group. And the characters, the writing, you know, everything in it is really top tier, especially for the time when it came out. Because that was around the time, you know, it'd have to compete with games like Modern Warfare 2, which were also doing, you know, big strides in the first-person space. But really what makes me love Halo Reach is a lot of nostalgia, because it was one of the first multiplayer games I ever truly played. I remember I got an Xbox Live subscriptions just so I could play Halo Reach online with friends. I was also starting to get on the internet for the first time around that same age, so Achievement Hunter, Rooster Teeth, all the stuff they were doing for the Halo community at the time, getting into Red versus Blue, all of that happened because of Halo Reach, and you could unironically say this podcast exists right now because I liked Halo Reach so much. I wanted to start interacting with the internet more, to like talk to other people about the game and like play it with other people. And so nothing but love for Halo Reach. I think it's the, unsung hero of the Halo franchise, and I think as years go on, some of the complaints people had with it when it first came out about like the balance of certain guns and like certain design choices, I think has faded, and people have started to realize, firefight mode's fun for arcade. It has great multiplayer maps still to this day, and the campaign's just a masterpiece. Just love everything about it. Love Noble Six. Love that story. Couldn't sing its praises enough. Then speaking of stories and the exact opposite of what I just said, which is long-running franchises, Resident Evil 4. Maybe I'll get a little hate for including the remake. Same thing as Glenn had said, right? I'll have to change my address. But I think the remake is better than the original. Shoot me now. But I cannot imagine what Capcom must have had to go through internally to even begin at the thought to touch Resident Evil 4 and attempt to remake it. It's like genuinely one of the greats of all time in the gaming space. When people talk about like best games ever, that game is always in the circle, and it deserves to be. It's awesome. So for Capcom to have the confidence to go back to their previous work and say, we're going to try and improve upon something that people, have worshipped as one of the GOATs forever, and then actually achieve that. Take everything about it, iron things out, rework the balancing for certain boss fights, change like little parts of the story to make things flow nicer, fix some of Ashley's like commands and everything so that it's a little easier to, handle those like escorting sequences. Just so good. I'm so impressed to this day at what they did, and I know Capcom has gone through and remade a bunch of the games at this point and succeeded with new games like RE9. But I still find myself looking back at RE4 Remake and being like, the story, Leon is just peak Leon in that. I love the puns. I love his cheesy moments. And the game balances that horror action just so perfect. There's so many cheesy moments that seconds later could be followed by something that genuinely like jump scares you out of your skin. And it flows through that state just perfectly. I mean, really just like incredible work. I couldn't praise it enough. The characters are great. The environments are great. I feel like even to this day, no game has done that. And this is controversial for Glenn because RE8 takes some of this. I don't think any game does, like in a village, in a creepy setting, trying to like solve a mystery, is done better in a lot of ways. There's so much about that I just absolutely love. And it kind of is the game that made Leon the icon he is now. I mean, like I think RE4 is the reason so many people love Leon Kennedy as a character. His evolution into the later games, everybody always points back to, who he is in 4 and what that means, And it's just, he hits a bingo every time. It's just so good. TF2. Okay. Talk about core childhood memories. TF2, I remember I got a gaming PC from my dad because it was an old PC he had, and he wasn't going to use it anymore. He had upgraded, so he gave me one. And I got it initially to play Star Wars The Old Republic. And I was probably a little too young to understand the MMO genre. So I made a Star Wars The Old Republic account, started playing it. And I remember I didn't understand, like, running into, like, high-level zones. Like, I shouldn't do that. So I, like, died a ton of times and was like, I don't understand this. And I kind of eventually dropped the game. And then I was at school one day, and my friend mentioned he had a Steam account. And I did not know what Steam was at the time. I had no idea, right? So I went home. He's like, it's free. Install Steam and install Team Fortress 2. And so I was like, all right, I can do that. So I go home. Shout out to my buddy Ryan. He's the one who suggested that for me. I went home, installed TF2, made a Steam account, and I just started playing it with some friends from middle school. And it blew my mind. I love its satirical commentary on, like, Norman Rockefeller style, like, Cold War art. And, it sort of takes this, like, era of history that people think about and, like, parodies it perfectly. It's so funny. And it's one of those games that I could still pick it up to this day, years later, when the game is, like, kind of in shambles. and get just like a big smile on my face and be like, oh, I love this game. The maps are so unique. It's still to this day one of the most balanced multiplayer games I've ever played. Like, it lets you get away with absurdly stupid stuff that feels unbalanced, but every single class has that level of if everything's broken, nothing is, right? And that TF2 kind of defined Valve's balancing stance even to this day in other games, like, with the way they balance Counter-Strike even now and Deadlock. It's kind of started with TF2 as this idea of if every character has something overpowered about themselves, then they are all balanced because they always have a moment they can shine, but then could be outshone by something else that, trumps it. And TF2 to this day just shines in that sense, and I really love how unique each of the classes feel. And that's something Valve's always been good at, but TF2 it particularly shines, where it's this idea of each class feels so distinct and unique and fun, and it kind of expresses your own personality by saying, which classes you like more than others. Are you more of an aggressive player? Are you more laid back? Do you want to support? Do you want to snipe from a distance, right? It really has all the archetypes that games like Overwatch and stuff as well years later would take from. And it wraps that up in a very casual, fun, unique art style that just makes for a game that to this day I think is still iconic, and ironically has outlived Overwatch twice, despite the fact that Overwatch tried to destroy it. It's kind of one of those games that I think will live forever, and I hope that's the case. And I hope that, Valve continues to support it, or at least gives it the Half-Life 2 treatment, where they kind of open the floodgates and let the community handle it moving forward if they're not interested in that, because I think it's a game that really deserves that treatment. Okay, top 5 territory. Here we go. Final Fantasy VII. Chef's Kiss. Just what a game, man. It almost makes me sad when I think about how good FF7 is to know that Nomura cooked like twice in his career. Perhaps I will talk more about him cooking immediately after this. But FF7, where to begin? Obviously, it's iconic. Tons of people love FF7. It's also in the GOAT debate, similar to RE4. It would almost be like saying Citizen Kane or Casablanca is your favorite movie. It's like everybody likes chicken nuggets. Here I am putting FF7 on my list. Like, I like it, But it really is a masterpiece for a reason. So many JRPGs at the time, and RPGs in general, had a standard format in the gaming space. It was like, boom, you're the hero. Whether you're a male or female character, you are downtrodden in a poor side of the city, blah, 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 blah. You unite with the light and have all this stuff, and then you get like a quest like Zelda style to go and defeat darkness, or essentially, right? And that was like every RPG or most story-based fantasy games at the time. So for FF7, even to this day, to open with you being a mercenary hired by a terrorist organization to blow up a factory is such a strong opening. To this day, it's phenomenal. It's such a great twist on what you expect. You start immediately questioning, am I the good guy? Why am I here? You start killing these random soldiers. You're like, should I even be killing them? What's happening? And it has that iconic, bombing run that the game opens with, and it has that theme, and you get introduced to Cloud and so many of the cast of characters just right off the bat. They're all so unique and interesting. And then you move from this, really intense bombing run thing where you're like, whoa, what's happening? This is crazy. And then it takes you into essentially this great shot where you see the slums in Seventh Heaven and all these really downtrodden areas where there's tons of poor people. And you can look up and see the giant rim of the upper city where the high class area of the city is built over them, and it immediately sets this tone of like, oh, this is a world where, serious dichotomy between, people's lifestyles and what they have. And it immediately sets the stage for big time commentary, which a lot of games at the time weren't doing. And then it just runs through this incredible, Final Fantasy loop that all the games are known for, of giving you a cast of characters, making your party, leveling them up, and going through the story. And it really kind of beats against the grain at so many points, without getting into big spoilers. But Cloud's backstory as a soldier, his PTSD, Aerith's introduction, and what she means for the main plot and where everything goes over time. And you know, the dynamic of the characters, you know, wanting to save the city and eventually, you know, having to branch out and venture across this vast world in order to stop Sephiroth and the Shinra Corporation and from, you know, destroying the world by stealing its life energy, essentially, right? Which, ironically, has aged incredibly well. Incredibly well all these years later. And obviously, with the remake series, you know, happening right now, those games are amazing, and I'm really excited for part 3 to, you know, allow people to experience this great story in a more modern fashion. But I gotta give the flowers to the OG. The music, the level design, so much of what people love about modern RPGs, even like Expedition, you know, where you have like the Picto system and stuff, a lot of that is based on the materia system that FF7 had, where you mix and match the materia combinations to create new status effects, to give yourself extra turns, or to have extra crits and all these things. It's such a phenomenally fun experience, and to this day, I think is one of the best stories in gaming. So, you know, it's a common take that FF7's goated, but I think it's common for a reason. Real slander, and I will be drugged through the streets for having this above FF7 on any Square Enix Reddit page, so forgive me. Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. Glenn, I'm going to call back to your list real quick.
Yeah.
You talked about how it's awesome that Red Dead lets you re-experience some of the old areas, and how it's fun when games do that, where they kind of give you the old areas to explore and everything.
Mhm.
Kingdom Hearts 2, specifically Final Mix. I do love Kingdom Hearts 2 as well, but specifically Final Mix is that for that franchise. It's amazing. Not only do I think Kingdom Hearts 2 has the best story of the franchise and the best characters, but Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix has, I believe it's like 70 boss fights. And it's essentially like, hey, here's all the boss fights of main Kingdom Hearts 2. And on top of that, you have every single boss back from the original games. And it created a staple, which was having the data log center, which Kingdom Hearts 3 had and a lot of later games had, where it would let you fight old bosses in later games using the mechanics of the new games. Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix was the first to do that, where it's like, here's the data log like Coliseum. Here's every boss from KH1 and Chain of Memories. All of them. Mega boss form, redesigned for Kingdom Hearts 2's battle system. Go crazy. Refight all of them. Experience them with new mechanics. Same music you love and everything. And it's so awesome to be able to do that. It also introduced critical mode, where you max cap yourself at level 1 and gain every ability at level 1 and turns it into like a DMC-like action game. It's so good. And then on top of that, if that all wasn't cool enough, you get to have potentially some of the stupidest, craziest writing I have ever seen put to screen. To this day, one of the hardest I have ever laughed playing a video game is watching Goofy from fucking Disney go, it's Sephiroth, oh my god, like that's like, to this day, one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And that Kingdom Hearts 2 takes that and it just runs with it, whereas Kingdom Hearts 1 tries to take itself seriously at certain moments. Kingdom Hearts 2 is not afraid to be like, yeah, I just put Mulan and Cloud Strife in the same room, it's kind of dumb, roll with it. And I think it's fun that the game embraces that a little bit, but still lets it have, you know, powerful story moments. And you know, it taking a lot of inspiration from Metal Gear Solid 2, you know, starting you with a character you're not going to finish the game with, and, you know, trying to, you know, use that to make a commentary and, like, set up the story that moves forward with, you know, the dynamic between Roxas, you know, who is he, why are you playing as him versus Sora, and then how Roxas contributes to Sora's story, and then eventually pushing through that story as Sora later on and seeing the implications of who Roxas is and what he has done in the start of the story. And then watching all of that culminate at the end for the climax is just great. It's just fantastic. And for it to have such fun, stupid, campy moments and have other moments that to this day still make me like tear up and get kind of emotional, I'm not sure there's a lot of games that can do that. It's really just, it's got the full smorgasbord of content. If you like action games, if you like JRPGs, I'm not sure there's a better game for that. It really gives you a little bit of everything, and even is a very casual, fun experience for like a Disney fan or someone who just in general enjoys kind of campier, fun storytelling. And it also has, if I may say, the best selection of worlds for a Kingdom Hearts game, which is always the debate amongst fans, where it's like, well, this one's better because it has, you know, these Disney movies or whatever, but like, Pirates of the Caribbean, Mulan, Hercules, all those are like the best ones, and they're all in KH2. And it's just it's in the GOAT debate for a reason sometimes, and I think it deserves its flowers, and I will certainly give it to it, even if every Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts fan seeing me put that as the top would be crazy sauce. I don't care. It's such a good game, such a plethora of content, and that's a great segue for me to go into plethora of content game to the max, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is probably single-handedly responsible for a multi-point drop in my GPA in college. That there's no doubt during grad school, some of my grades could have been better if it wasn't for the release of Elden Ring. But we're here anyway. I love Elden Ring. I know it's always tough to pick a favorite Souls game because they're all so different. And for me, like, I love Elden Ring, I love Bloodborne. Dark Souls 3 has a soft spot for me. But I'll always remember that first journey through Elden Ring. I had like one of the worst builds possible for fighting Melania, and I refused to change. I had a dual greatsword strength build, mimic tier build that was essentially the plan was slam the boss so many times it can't stand up. It was a terrible build, but I was like, it's my build. I'm 80 hours into this game. I'm not changing it. And that's why I think Elden Ring is the GOAT in those games for me, is freedom of choice. I also love Sekiro, as does Glenn. But one of the reasons I don't have it as high is I love the freedom to make builds that the other games give you. And I particularly love the wide array of stuff you can do in Elden Ring, especially with the changes the DLC makes and a lot of the extra weapons and stuff it adds. So many unique choices, I guess is the best way to say it. You can play that game 1,000 times and never play it the same way. And that is something I absolutely love about Elden Ring. And so much of the story, so much of the world that you explore, the aesthetics, the Celtic influences, the mythology, it's just fantastic. And I always I still remember the first time I beat what's the boss's name? It's Godric the Grafted. I remember I really hit a wall on him when I was first playing through. And I remember that feeling of euphoria I got when you finally break through and beat him, and then you can kind of go to the next area essentially. And technically I think you can sneak past his castle, but I didn't know that the first time I played it. And seeing the map expand massively and be like, whoa, there's so much more than I thought there would be. And to get that experience tenfold over and over again, being like, oh yeah, this is it. The game can't get any bigger than this. And it just keeps going. It seems almost impossible for it to happen. And yet over and over again, I found myself surprised and having my expectations, shattered by what Elden Ring was bringing forth. And I remember having probably some of the strongest post-game depression I've had when I beat that game, where I was like, I got to just play it again. And to this day, I think it's a game where I pick it up and I just want to make a new character. I'm like, oh, I want to go a blood build with double whips or something this time, or, go for pure strength again and, minimize health as much, just, be really squishy but as strong as I can possibly be early on for a challenge. I really love mixing and matching in that game and trying things, going for different routes, going for different endings. Stuff like that I think is really, really fun. And I've always found it to be a game that I have almost gone from being like, wow, this game's really hard, to being like a comfort title for me, where I like just going back and running through the world, hearing the music, all those sorts of things again. Just really love it. I could sing its praises more, but it's Elden Ring. Everybody knows. Persona 5 Royal. A game that was slandered mere minutes ago on this podcast. No, I'm kidding. I think Persona 5 Royal is probably the best turn-based game I've ever played, for a couple of reasons. One thing I really love about it is its story. It is very much an unapologetic anime take on a essentially heist crew, Inception style, trying to, manipulate people, change the world for the better, Robin Hood style, steal from the rich, give to the poor. But with this anime twist, a little bit of Inception going on. And the game is very much a slow burn. And, the devs have always said this. I am a big champion of this with Persona, but one of the first things Persona 5 tells you, subliminally even when you boot up the game, is you go through it, you start booting up the game, and one of the first things you see is the little loading animation that the game has of Joker just sitting there with his glasses. And it says, take your time. Persona 5 is much like a cup of black coffee that you could get in the morning. At first, it's a little bitter. You're not sure what's going on. It's a little slow. It has a great big bang opening of the casino heist and then really slows you down big time. It is meant to be slowly enjoyed and simmered, just like that cup of coffee and the cafe that you're introduced to so early on. And it's one of those things that as you go through it, as the story picks up and sort of snowballs forward, they introduce new mechanics, new boss fights, new levels. You find yourself slowly beginning to be entranced by the game. And by the time you're, 15 hours in, after having started with what seems like such a simple story, you find yourself in love with this cast of characters and committed to this genuine 100-hour journey following the Phantom Thieves and what they're doing and how they're going to try and change the world. So much of the mechanics, the way the game introduces it, where, it takes you through a journey of hey, standard, turn-based combat of just hey, this ability beats this, and, even Pokemon style a little bit where it's elemental differences like fire beats ice, etc. But then it adds extra layers to that when it introduces the gun system where you can use the guns to stun enemies to guarantee a crit. Or you can, when you get a stun, they eventually introduce the handshake tag where you can take an extra turn on your turn with another character by swapping them out from your back roster. So when you late game start to get to the really complicated boss fights later on, you can take 10 turns in one if you play it right. You can, use an element, get a stun, swap people out, and do that for all 4 members of the cast, and then swap through the whole party. And it does that in an extra way that's really interesting because as you go through, it expands the cast similar to any other turn-based RPG, but it has the social simulator side of Persona, where it's it encourages you, when you're not in battles, to hang out with your friends and go on adventures outside of this metaverse world that the game introduces you to. Some of that could be romantic interests, like you see in some RPGs, where you want to romance a character, or spend time with a friend that you just really like if you find one of the characters funny. And in doing that, in taking those bonds further, it upgrades those characters in the game. They gain new abilities, they gain new mechanics, and I think the game does that very intentionally. And the other Persona games do this, obviously, but I think 5 does it particularly well in that it's such a slow burn where as you increase those relationships, you get these extra mechanics. And then you're oh, well, I should use that person in the party more because I have this new ability. Then you start to realize that the game is sort of Pavloving you into, oh, I'm starting to just love this character in general. I like them for their abilities. I like them for their story. And by the time you're reaching the end of the game and you have this full cast of characters, you know so much about all of them. No character has a moment where you're oh, I love these party members, but they didn't give enough characterization to this person. You choose who you want to know and love, and you get to craft this story how you want. People get more time if you want them to. Others don't if you don't. And that lets you also build your party around the characters you like. The ones you spend more time with, want to learn more about, they're now stronger. They're better in your party. And going through all of those hoops is just so much fun in Persona. And then on top of that, the story's fantastic. It's commentaries it makes about, welfare of others, about mental health, about, what it really means to be a hero, about religious commentary, even at certain points without getting into spoilers, about theories about mankind and, what it means to truly rise up or to truly give up. And, what it means sometimes where it's hey, maybe you started off on a journey in a selfish way, but now it's, times have come and you got to step up. Are you going to, do that, or are you going to sort of sulk into the shadows? So much of what that game presents is a masterpiece. Despite it being such a long game, I've played it 4 times, I think. I've 100% it. I love the original. I love Royal even more because it just adds extra content to a game that's already a masterpiece. Similar to RE4, they took something that's already amazing and made it even better. What's not to love? I think it's a must-play game for everybody. But I will say, if you don't like anime, it can take a little bit of getting used to the way it presents its story, because it for sure expects you to kind of like that style of storytelling. But if you do, and you haven't checked the game out, I strongly recommend it, especially since it's no longer locked on PlayStation. and it's kind of on all platforms now. Whereas when Royal first came out, it was PlayStation exclusive. I think it's a must play, must pick up for anybody who loves JRPGs. So, last but not least, the GOAT, in my opinion, which is probably a hot take, but hear me out. I love Portal 2. I usually replay it once or twice a year. Despite that, I'm still bad and forget the puzzles. I don't know how. I've played it countless times, and I still forget the solutions to certain puzzles. I go, wait, what am I supposed to do with this? Portal 2 was kind of one of the first games I played where I realized story games were possible. I had played Halo Reach, as I mentioned on my list, but the campaign wasn't something I interacted with a lot when I was like 8 years old. I was on Xbox Live with my friends. When I played Portal 2 on the Xbox 360, didn't even have a Steam account yet. I sat there and I slowly just found myself solving the puzzles at my own pace, figuring it out, enjoying its tongue-in-cheek, very dry sense of humor that the game presents forward, along with a very solid emotional story about Chell's journey through this factory. And I had not played Portal 1 at the time. So I kind of discovered the mystery along with the characters in the game, because Portal 2 kind of assumes you played the first one, but you don't have to. But as the mystery unravels and characters regain their memory and stuff like that, you find yourself more and more invested in the story. And I realized, like, oh, story games are completely possible. You can play a video game and kind of treat it not like a movie, not to be controversial with like mixtape stuff that came out recently, right? But like interacting with a narrative that is presenting itself in a cinematic way. That was one of the first times I really experienced that, was with Portal 2. And it gives me a lot of nostalgia for that game. And it also makes me realize how much I appreciate it when a game has really great writing. And it's one of the games that made me love Valve and made me love their kind of hands-free style of just throwing you into a sandbox and expecting you to figure things out as you go. And I, to this day, think it's one of the best games you could hand someone who's never played a video game and be like, hey, this is what the genre has to offer. Play it, enjoy it, and they'll laugh, they'll have fun, the emotional moments will hit, the twists will hit, and then you can just go and play the co-op mode as well and re-experience a whole secondary story post beating the main story. I think it's really one of those games that kind of has it all. It's an amazing co-op experience, amazing story, fun puzzles and levels, amazing acting. J.K. Simmons as Cave Johnson. Some of those speeches he gives are awesome. Just love them, love them, love them. But yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I think it's the GOAT, and I think it's a game everybody should play. If you have a Steam account, it's always usually on sale, just like Half-Life 2. Check it out. Great game. Has some great little scary sections too. If you like horror a little bit, there's some creepy moments in Portal, which I think a lot of people don't give it credit for, is its weird ambiance that can be a little unsettling at times. I strongly recommend it. Strongly recommend it. And I'll open the floor to the boys to either slander me or make some commentary on my list as well.
I'll let you go first, Glenn. I'm gonna run to the bathroom, but
Okay. Yeah, no, I think this was top-notch list. I thought it was very fun to see the Team Fortress connection you and I kind of had,
Yeah.
in terms of like, my story is very similar to yours in the fact that, like, you mentioned your dad had gotten you a computer.
Yeah.
I remember sitting on my dad's lap
Mm.
as he played as the sniper, literally
Nice.
lining up shots for me in the like training ground, being like, all right, click the left click, I'm gonna aim it for you. And that is such a core memory that TF2 is always gonna be in my heart as like
Oh, yeah.
the like spark that set forth a true gamer, to put it lightly.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of that for me too, That's one of the reasons I
Yeah.
so quickly fell in love with Deadlock is, some of my viewers and know it's like
Mhm.
I saw that same spark in that game, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. In terms of butting heads, Elden Ring, right?
Yeah.
I'm very curious. How often, when you replay it, do you go back to those like little dungeons?
I am
Like,
I am
yeah.
definitely in the minority for this. I do love to go back to those little dungeons a lot. I like
Mm,
rerunning. There's certain ones that I like more than others.
right.
Some of them obviously don't hit as hard, but a
Yes.
couple of the ones that have like really solid puzzle mechanics, even if they're way out of the way, I find myself going back to them. And I know that's something that a lot of
Mm,
people ignore, but I actually really love running through some of the ones that have the illusory wall puzzles or like some of the
right.
invisible items and everything.
Mhm.
I really like that because I think it's a really fun way to add variety to the exploration. Like every time I try to play the game, I try to encourage myself to do it in a different order, right? Maybe go to Caled first this time. Let's see some stuff.
Mm,
And sometimes I feel like running into some of those side dungeons that would normally seem so flat in Elden Ring, when you approach them in a new order than you saw them for the first time, and sometimes get some new different items earlier on, it can change your approach to the way you look at the game. You're like, oh, having this earlier could make this fight a lot easier. Maybe I should go there first and stuff like that. I think I think it's a fair criticism of Elden Ring that a lot of those feel flat
Mhm.
because there's so many of them that they do
yeah.
recycle a lot of it. Um, but I still find them kind of fun to enjoy. I will admit the biggest criticism of Elden Ring and why it wouldn't be like a GOAT game for me is the bad habit they have in that game, and I know this is a criticism you have as well, Glenn, of just
Mhm.
doing dual boss fights to make it harder. Where they're
Oh,
just like,
yeah.
we will make it harder by having two things in this room.
Yes.
I don't mind the dungeons. I do mind that they do that a lot.
Yeah.
Bro, those twin gargoyles
Yes,
and that one cave that
Oh.
got me for so long.
it's
But
bad.
on the note of Elden Ring, I do think like it's not the perfect game for sure, but sort of what you mentioned, Willis, I think what
Hmm.
that game excelled at, and they did a really smart thing right at the start. I mean, forgetting the fact that you opened a tomb and Limgrave just opens up for you,
Yeah,
and you can actually see like every major point in the game, even up until the cauldron
yeah,
that you go
Mm,
to right at the end. Like such good environmental design, but more so than that, what I wanted to say about the Elden Ring is like you open the map for the first time and it's very small and it's clouded, right?
yeah,
And
oh, yeah.
I don't know how many games do this. I'm sure other games do, but it's like as you like progress through the world, the map slowly and slowly gets a little bigger, but not
yeah.
completely yet, right? So you're spending the first several hours of the game going through Limgrave. Maybe you go to the Weeping, what is it called? The one below the peninsula, so you're like exploring the
Oh
sort of
yeah.
like the first two levels, and you're like, wow, this is so big, right? And then I'm sure you guys might have had this experience. It's like a chest in one of those like catacombs or something in
Mhm.
Limgrave, and you open it, and it's like the typical the trap, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden you're in this mine shaft, and I'm like, where the hell am I? And you're like getting out of there. You're struggling because these these things are like insta killing you, and you finally get out. I'm like, okay, I'm out of this, and you emerge into Caelid, like you're in
Mhm.
hell.
You're
Yeah.
literally in hell. Yeah.
And then I open up the map again. I'm like, where the hell am I? I'm only like level 10. How did I get here? You know? Or there's a similar one, right? That's way down there, and it takes you straight to the capital.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my
You're the
God.
Yeah.
end
And
game. End
then
game. Yeah.
every time you open up that map again and you see where your character is, it's like in this shroud of darkness and you're like scrolling, and I'm like, oh my God, how far am I? And
Yeah.
then of course that moment after you beat uh Godric,
Hmm.
and then the whole of Liurnia and all the other zones open up to you. Like that I think it really encapsulates what Elden Ring did best as an example of if a FromSoft took its games and made it open world. I think they executed on that idea almost flawlessly. Obviously, when you do an open world game, there are the drawbacks of now that points of interest are not as impactful as a game that is, designed to be more linear, where then
Mhm.
they can make those moments a bit more intent, like with intent and meaning.
Hmm.
Whereas in Elden Ring, it's kind of scattered. That's obviously a criticism, but I think that's just sort of the nature of open world games. So obviously, I think, a fair criticism there. But what it did in like just opening up that world to you, I think very difficult to capture. Like I can't think of many other games that did that. And then
Hmm.
I didn't even touch upon how you go underground and such, and when that
Yeah.
opens up, and it's just like the idea that it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it was already big enough when you were on Limgrave,
Yeah,
it was already
exactly.
massive on Limgrave, and it just keeps going and going, and it's like that sense. I think it's why it probably earns its spot for a lot of gamers, even though it's not my like from like I would put Souls 1 above it, and when I get to Sekiro, who knows where they'll end up relative to the others,
Switch up
but
the mix, yeah.
right. But I do think that game really cemented itself as like a modern classic, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. I think this is a game that people will talk about for many years to come.
Oh yeah, that's
absolutely.
for sure. The sense of scale in Elden Ring was very impressive, especially going down that first elevator and seeing seeing stars underground. Like,
Hmm.
um,
Oh,
it,
dude, it's
that
crazy.
that just doesn't happen. Stars underground, and then the verticality they added. Like Sekiro had jumping and whatnot, but like Elden Ring had like jumping off of like cliffs to find like the rest of that Ronnie quest line. Like even
Mhm.
going to like the Mimic tier, finding out how to do that and realizing you're jumping off of a cliff into like a building that felt like the foreground
Yeah,
and realizing like, oh no, there is no foreground anymore, dude. If you can see it, you can go to it.
yeah.
And just
Right.
that was really impressive.
But yeah, the 3x3s have been said. The hot takes have been
That's
uttered.
them.
I hope people really enjoyed it. I think this was really fun to do. It's maybe something we'll do again in the future as well for maybe specific genres and stuff like that. I think it could be really fun.
Mhm.
Um,
I tasked myself with playing one game from each of your 3x3s that I haven't played
ooh,
before. So,
Oh,
Mark, I'm going to pick up Baldur's Gate, and Willis, I will play Portal
yo,
2.
dude, yeah,
yo,
love
So
to see
let's
it.
go.
I
that's
think
my
perfect.
homework.
I think perfect time after you beat Outer Wilds as well, because a lot of that is like puzzle solving.
Oh,
I think jumping into
that's
one of
true.
the GOAT puzzle games right after that, you're gonna have a really good time.
Yes, that is true. That is what I'm gonna do after my Total Chaos playthrough.
Dude, hell yeah.
So,
I can't wait to hear
look
your
forward to
opinions on that. That's gonna be fun.
that.
But yeah, thank you to everybody who tuned in for the podcast live. It's always really fun to interact with the audience and see people's opinions. Um,
Yes,
I don't know if you boys
thank
had anything
you.
else you wanted to say before we wrap up, but I think this was a very solid episode.
I think
Mhm.
so. Yeah, no, thank you for everybody from all across the all across our friend groups joining. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for trying out Coffee Cast. I appreciate seeing everybody from my hometown come in here, so I appreciate it.
much love. Yeah, good times. Mark, anything you want to
Mhm.
wrap up with?
What Glenn said. Thank you, folks.
Exactly. Well said.
Thank
Well
you.
said. Alrighty. Well, thank you boys so much. I'll probably wrap up my
Yes.
stream here, play a little Deadlock for the people who tune in for that. But thank you all for tuning in live for everything today. And it was really fun to get to interact with the chat and everything. And we'll be back sometime soon. I'll announce on social medias. Oh yeah, socials. If you don't follow me on Coffee Studios, I'm at COFY Studios, no spaces, on all platforms. In the link of our first episode of the podcast, and when this is a VOD in the link of that, we have a Discord. You think any of us said an egregious enough take? Come join and tell us. Or you want to tell us how awesome we are? Do that too. Join the Discord, come chat, hang out, all those sorts of things. I think it could be really fun. And I look forward to, talking to more fans and everybody in the future. So yeah, much love, everybody. And yeah, I'll wrap it up there, kind of. Just follow me on socials for announcements of the next episode. And lots more fun content with everybody. I hope to start editing the podcast into some short form content to, learn about some fun little moments of people talking about what they like. And so it should be a good vibe. So yeah.
Yes.
Much love, everyone. Talk to everybody soon.
Thank you all.
Yes, and thank you to the boys. Thanks again, guys,
Thank you.
for everything.
This is,
So I will
excuse
talk
me,
to everybody later.
a damn fine cup of coffee.